Hi guys, I'm back with part 3 of camera operation and exposure. I'm going to let you in on a secret. I don't know that many people teach f-stops this way, but with the advent of the digital camera, the metadata, which is recording what the camera is using as far as exposure information. It's a little digital file. Every time you snap a picture, it writes a file that tells what was the f-stop, meaning the lens opening, what was the shutter speed, and what was the ISO. And that's metadata, and that's pretty cool stuff to have. Now, when digital photography came about, the computer engineers got very, very technical, and they invented all kinds of F numbers that traditional photographers never ever used. It's kind of weird type of thing. That's what happens when you get a bunch of scientists together. They decide to make everything so much more precise. Oh well, I just want you to understand that people talk about certain standard F numbers, and these have been around for 150 years, and they will be around for another 150 years. There are F numbers in between these standard numbers, and those might be a little confusing to you. So I want you to learn how to spot a standard F number. So here's a saying that I'd like you to write down. Photography works in halves and doubles. Photography works in halves and doubles. And now, we use about 11 or 12 standard f-stops a lot of the time. I'm going to save you work. I'm going to say if you can remember two different numbers, and you can remember photography works in halves and doubles, then at any time that you need to, you can write down the standard F numbers. So let's make a T, nice big T, and it's a real tall kind of a T right there. And I'm going to tell you a silly story, and the story is about 1. Okay, that's logical. Our first F number is F1. That's easy to remember. So now all you have to do is remember the second number. And the silly story is that F1 likes to play golf. So let's put F1 on the golf course, and F1 is getting ready to hit the ball, getting ready to tee off. So he drops the ball right there, puts the ball down on the green, and you golfers, you understand that there's courtesies on the golf course. And before you whack a drive 300 yards, you're supposed to holler a number. Well, not really a number. I think they spell it F-O-R-E. But for the sake of this silly story, I want you to think about it as a number 4. And F1 puts the ball down and says 4. Okay. Those are the two numbers that you need to memorize. And then photography works in halves and doubles. Watch this. We're going to go right down here. And we have half of our standard F numbers right there. It's so easy to make them. You don't have to memorize all of those. The more you talk about them, the more they'll stick in your memory. Okay, let's go to the other side. a little bit of a math challenge here. Now, when we get to 11, you mathematicians are going to say it should be 0.2. No, that's too big to put on a camera. That's an insignificant 2/10. That just doesn't make. So they've rounded it off to F11. Okay? And then you have 22. So, what is the relationship between these? Each number will either let in twice as much light or it will cut the light available by half when you go from one number to the next. You're going to have to kind of draw a zigzag line here because it starts at 1 and it goes to 1, 4, and then it goes to 2 and then 2, 8. Okay, so you could kind of stretch them out in a big long line, and then you could code them, and you could say littlest, littlest, bigger, bigger, bigger lens opening, bigger lens opening, really big lens opening. Okay, so the bigger the F number, the smaller the lens opening, the less light is going to come in, and generally speaking, the longer your exposure is going to have to be. The larger the lens opening, that's for you guys shooting sports, and you're going to flood the inside of your camera with light, and you're going to have to snap that shutter at 2,000th or 4,000ths of a second, and you're going to be freezing your high dive artist in midair perfectly. You'll be able to count every eyelash on their eye because you have a big lens opening and you have a fast shutter speed. Okay, I'm just going to throw one little setting at you right now, and that is, I said to kind of set your camera at ISO 200 when we're learning. So over here, I'm going to put down F16 at 1/200th of a second. When I get into a computer program, I like defaults. Default makes me feel comfortable. F16 at 1/200th of a second. If you're working outside in bright sunlight, that is going to be your default exposure. You'll be able to modify that eventually, but that's just, you know, something to keep in mind. F16, it's like a home-based number that everybody seems to return to. And if you are shooting at an ISO of 200, then you set your shutter speed at 200. That's called the F16 rule, and you'll see that in some of the videos. So, end of part 3.